Call this public hearing of the Sun Peaks Mountain Resort Municipality to order for 3 o'clock Tuesday, February the 24th. Today's public hearing is convened under the provisions of the Local Government Act of British Columbia to hear submissions relative to the temporary use permit 2026001. This is the public's opportunity to make representations to council. All persons who believe that their interest in property is affected by the proposed temporary use permit shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard respecting matters on the proposed bylaw. I would ask that those members of the public who wish to speak to commence your address to this council by clearly stating your name. Council will not debate the matters of a proposed bylaw or temporary use permit with individual citizens, but council members may ask questions of you following your presentation. The main function of the public hearing is to listen to your views. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views heard. Temporary use permit 2026001, if approved, will allow food trucks to be operated at 3200 and 3315 Village Way. Janelle, do we have any written submissions at this point? No. And does anyone here in the room wish to speak on this matter? Calling a second time. Anybody here wishing to speak on the matter? And a third and final time. There being no further speakers, I declare this public hearing closed. Hey. Let's call this regular council meeting of the Sun Peaks Mountain Resort Municipality to order. It is 3:01 on Tuesday, February the 24th. And acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Secwepemc people. Are there any late items to introduce at this point?
Mr. Mayor, I believe that you would like to add the release of in-camera information that can be added to the agenda under section 7 new business.
Excellent. So in new business, section 7. Great, got that. Excellent. Thank you. Number 4.1, we have the adoption of minutes, public hearing minutes from February the 10th. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes? Oh, sorry. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Thank you. Councillor Kimmel, second by Councillor Dye, all in favor. Good. And we have adoption of minutes. We have 4.1 public hearing minutes from February the 10th. Getting a motion. Councillor Wyken, second by Councillor Kimmel. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Under 4.2, we have adoption of the regular council minutes from February 10th. Can I get a motion, please? Councillor Wyken, second by Councillor Gillespie. Anybody seeing errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. And finally, under adoption of minutes 4.3, we have the special council meeting minutes of February the 12th. Can I get a motion? Councillor Wyken, Councillor Kimmel, seconder. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Good. Moving on to 5, this is arising from a public hearing. Get that. Under 5.1, we have a temporary use permit, 2026001 for 3200 and 3315 Village Way. Director Hopper, you wish to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor O'Toole. I just want to highlight a couple things that kind of arose at the last meeting regarding this food truck temporary use. Again, I want to be clear that this is only for the Sun Peaks.
That's not at Farland, it's a Farland training.
It's only for the Sun Peaks Center area. It's not for anything on the hill or anything the other way. It's just for essentially this property. It is during events. A couple other things did make a slight edit to the definition to make it clear that these are for mobile vehicles and not necessarily just tables set up that can provide catering from other services. Also expanded the dumping to make sure that it needs to be done at an approved sandy dump location, as well as that there'll be a requirement that a grease interceptor is installed and operating in the units to make sure that the grease isn't just getting dumped into these sandy dumps. And then a note on the fees, we will be collecting the fee per business license bylaw as a non-licensed restaurant / snack bar, flat fee of $300.
Excellent. Thank you. So the recommendation we have before us is that council authorizes issuance of a temporary use permit, number TUP 2026-001 for 3200 and 3315 Village Way, subject to the following conditions. Can I please get a mover on the motion? Councillor Kimmel, second by Councillor Gillespie. Any questions or comments by councillor?
Yeah, just for clarification,
Councillor
the recommendation says up to 3 years, but I'm assuming the motion is to approve it for 3 years.
For 3 years, that's my understanding. Is that correct? For the, approve it for the 3 years?
I think 3 years.
May or may not go that long, but.
Yeah, I think 3 years would be good.
And my only other question was, these licenses didn't really say, so if, is it the license of each individual person coming up for the 3-year period, or is each license could be like a one-off license?
So this is to approve the use of the land for the food trucks.
Yeah.
They would still need to meet the business license requirement and get a license every year.
Okay.
So either they apply yearly or maybe they apply in July and get the 50% discount on only operate the last half of the year. However they want to do it, but they would apply like any other business every year.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? Councillor Gillespie?
Can you elaborate on the grease interceptor, units?
Yeah, I'm fairly standard units usually, like in most restaurants, obviously probably smaller than what you'd see in a restaurant, but most of these trucks would have them that I've seen in other municipalities.
Any further questions?
What if there was, I guess, the grease trap, this thing, what if there's no deep fryer, there's no, like, is up?
So if we're asking, like, if it's a low risk food truck and it doesn't have that.
You know, like,
scenario.
someone has a hot dog roller in there.
Exactly. Hot dog roller and a coffee machine.
It's pretty, if we're applying the building bylaw definition of these grease trap interceptors, it's pretty difficult to get around that as a
Okay.
commercial unit.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Okay. Further questions? Comments, no? Seeing none, call question, all in favor? Motion's carried. Be short agenda. Okay, 6 mayor council reports, if nothing to report today, anybody from council, anything? No, good. And moving on to 7, as the CEO alluded to. Let me just grab my note sheet here.
Sorry, do you want me to do it briefly?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I know you can find it.
So, in an effort to be more open and transparent, at council's request, a summary of the health center process, which includes discussions and decisions from closed meetings, is on this afternoon's in-camera agenda with a recommendation that it be released publicly in order to allow council to be able to speak to the contents of it in an open meeting if they wish. Council must pass a resolution authorizing the release of that information.
Thank you. So I seek a motion to authorize release of the information of the health center request proposal and the agreement summary. Can I get a motion, please? Councillor Dye, seconder, Councillor Gillespie, questions or comments? Seeing none, in favor? That motion is carried. 7, now under 8, correspondence. So under 8.1, we've got a letter here regarding need for medical clinic in Sun Peaks. I'm assuming council, and I would imagine members of the community will have a chance to read this. And it's likely that today's Q&A will be mostly about the clinic, so I'm not going to go into great detail here. We'll have an opportunity to answer questions at that point. And then under 8.2, we have a call for unity around democratic principles in the wake of the Tumbler Ridge tragedy. So that'll be received as well. Can I get a motion to receive the correspondence? Councillor Kimmel, second by Councillor Gillespie. Questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Excellent. Okay, so before we jump into questions from the public, we did a pretty short one. I just want to share a bit here with the community before we start that. So before we begin the question and answer portion of today's meeting, On behalf of council, I wanted to provide residents with some background and context on the process around the clinic's closure and the efforts and challenges to date into getting it reopened. As a reminder, the municipality does not provide healthcare service and that it is not the role of local government. But we are the owners of the Sun Peaks Community Health Center. And we want to ensure that medical services are provided in our community, and we also want to ensure the sustainability of healthcare operations in that clinic. This time last year, council began reviewing the clinic operations under the operator steps management at the time. There were concerns coming from the community that council was hearing around the council table and also directly about the level of service provided at the time of the clinic. Council felt that the long-term health of the clinic would be best served if we looked in a different direction. And council then terminated the steps with lease effective October, the lease of steps effective October 2025. Quickly after that, we appointed a working group to research and make recommendations to council on the best operating model for the Sun Peaks Clinic in order to inform a future request for proposals for a new operator. The working group was made up of 2 members of council, community members and medical professionals, both past and present. The findings of that group strongly recommended that council pursue a private doctor or doctors to operate the clinic and restart the health association under an independent community-led governance model to provide support to the operator of the clinic. One additional strong recommendation was that the municipality maintain ownership of the facility under a lease model. The recommendation to retain ownership was influenced by clear evidence from other experts in community health clinic operations. The municipality issued a request for proposals in September 2025, seeking qualified family physicians to independently lease and operate a full-scope family medicine practice in the health center. The municipality received 1 proposal which did not meet the criteria, as it included an option for purchase of the health center. Council discussed the content of the proposal during in-camera council meetings between October and November of 2025. Council reiterated that the health center space was not being considered for purchase during the RFP process, and council did not wish to consider the private sale and ownership of the health center. This was communicated several times to the proponent. It was explained that the health center is a community asset and the municipality wishes to preserve and protect it as such. The proponent responded that the purchase option was a non-negotiable. Over the next number of weeks, we were unable to make any headway on the clinic opening. We were unwilling to move on selling, and the proponent would not move on to buying the space. At this point, hearing the concerns of residents, council met again to further look at all options and reconsider the purchase option. We consulted with the resort, as the building is a strata-owned facility by the municipality and Sun Peaks Resort LLP. The municipality leases the ski patrol and ambulance areas to the resort, and Sun Peaks Resort has a right of first refusal registered on the clinic space. Resort said they would support us selling the clinic space only as long as we protected it for future use as a family medical clinic, and the patrol space and the ambulance bay remained under control of Sun Peaks Resort LLP through a future sale to them. And I'll just jump off of what I'm gonna say here. So yesterday I had a follow-on phone meeting with the leadership of Sun Peaks Resort, and that position hasn't changed. Sun Peaks Resort is willing to not stand in the way of a sale of the clinic as long as that clinic is protected long-term, and that they hold the responsibility to the municipality to ensure that it stays a clinic for its entirety, and that their use of the patrol space and the ambulance bays and its supporting spaces are not encumbered. We agreed to move forward with the proponents outside of the requested proposal structure with the intent to collaborate with the proponents to determine how a purchase option could be included and still meet our legislative requirements and community obligations to secure health services. Municipality wanted a provision to buy back the facility if the proponents failed to operate in the future. Council was also prepared to provide a lease for $0 rent with the option to purchase the health center This was communicated to the proponents and reflected in draft agreements prepared by the municipality. It is important to note that the municipality as a local government is prohibited from providing assistance to a business under local government legislation. This prohibition does not apply to nonprofit organizations. Assistance would include things like rent below market rate, no rent, sale below market value, financial support, property tax exception, and so on. In the context of the health center, if the municipality was to provide assistance to an operator that is a business, then a partnering agreement, or what is known in the government as a partnering agreement, would be required. There are a number of legislative and procedural requirements in a partner agreement framework, including obligations / expectations built into the partner agreement in exchange for that assistance. This was also explained in detail to the proponents. It's extremely challenging to make progress in this process if the proponents are not willing to accept terms and conditions that are required to meet our legislative requirements and protect the health center as a long-term community health center. The municipality has legal obligations and obligations to the community, and any agreement must clearly reflect that. Throughout this process, the municipality has negotiated in good faith, devoted substantial municipal and legal resources to pursuing an agreement that supports a viable and financially sustainable medical practice, while safeguarding publicly owned community health asset. On behalf of council, I want to emphasize that our objective is to ensure the community receives full service family care and that the health center remains dedicated to that purpose indefinitely. Council will not engage in any public debate or dispute on the negotiations or agreements or lack of agreements today. Whatever the outcome, the municipality remains committed to getting the health center reopened under a process that is guided by council's direction, legislative requirements, and the municipality's obligations to the public. As noted in the interest of openness and transparency with the community, we will be releasing and posting a summary of the health center request for proposal and the agreement process after today's council meeting. Just want to remind everyone before we start the question and answer period that it is in fact a question and answer period. It's not a place or a time to make grand statements or speeches. This is an opportunity for residents to ask questions of council relating to today's agenda, including this letter and the clinic, in order for residents to become better informed so they can form their own opinions of what the best path forward is. Thank you. Start the Q&A. Back, please.
It's Chris Holster.
That's Chris.
Given that this process has taken so long, and it seems like here at that crossroads, would the council consider just closing the process on the RFP and consider some other options?
I would say that nothing is off the table. We have, as we stated earlier, we had intentions to do the motion we just made to allow us to have this conversation was originally planned for the meeting after this. We moved it to now so that we could have this more open dialogue with citizens, but we will be having an in-camera meeting after, at which point we're going to be releasing those documents we talked about, and obviously we'll be having a more thorough conversation. And we're hoping to get some more background here and see where citizens sit before we go into that meeting. So I don't think anything's off the table, so thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you. I'm just asking for a few questions to be put on the record, and I'm submitting them in writing as well.
Thank you.
I'm
Just
also.
sorry, Catherine, I know probably everybody knows who you are, but if you
Yeah.
could just state who you are.
Dr. Catherine Biersky. I'm also providing a supporting printout for the record showing the paper reached, the page reached when clicking the request for proposal link to the municipality's website. So for context, there have been 3 proposals that I, Dr. Biersky, have put in. The first in 2024 was a rental only proposal prepared with Alrain and brought to council by Alrain. The second in 2025 proposed purchasing the strata unit at market value. The third proposal submitted through the request for proposals process included a lease with an option to purchase at a fixed price. The current request for proposal was publicly posted on August 29th, 2025, and today is February 24th, 2026. Within this RFP process timeline from October 2025 to February 2026, 3 proposed reopening dates from me have been requested in October, December, and February, which have now passed. I respectfully request yes or no answers to each of the questions below. 1, yes or no, will the municipality commit to a clear timeline with dates for next steps in the health center process so that I and the community know what to expect? Secondly, yes or no, after I offered in October to keep the clinic open, did the municipality ask me to pay $10,707.50 plus GST per month, plus expenses, while publicly stating it was offering free lease on housing? Number 3, yes or no, if the municipality's public statements about the process or terms do not match the actual process or terms, will the municipality support a joint public verification to correct the record? 4, yes or no, will the municipality commit to publicly releasing all 3 of the proposals which have been given to council and the municipality's written responses, if any, with any legally required redactions so that the public record is complete? And 5, yes or no, will the municipality commit to making the request for proposals publicly accessible if the link on the municipality's website currently directs users to a password protected iCompass login page? Thank you.
Thank you. So, well, I'd say we can take the questions away. Obviously, those are not, to use a movie quote, soup questions, not the easiest things to respond to here, and provide fulsome answers.
Yeah.
But we can take those questions away and provide answers back after the fact, sorry, CEO.
Mr. Mayor, I'll defer to council, but I believe you can probably respond
Okay,
yes or no with some context to some of the questions.
Do we have written copies of them so we can?
yeah. Thanks.
You want to pass them around? Thank you very much. Oh, yes, thank you. There are multiple pages.
Appreciate it.
If you do need more, I have more. Pizza. No, it was on. Yeah. You're going to put it out for the web.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, this is all something we can't really get together and as a council, I can't answer for all 5 of us.
Yeah,
I'm more than willing to say what I would say to the questions. If that's,
well, I think
if it's like that's how to go, or you can respond first.
yeah, I think what I'd start off by saying here is that, Dr. Navarski, I appreciate the time you've taken here to provide us with this. I wanna go back to the fact that, and I don't want to sound tongue in cheek, but I'm not an experienced real estate person, but it's never been my experience that the tenant writes proposals and agreements, landlords do that. And so you were provided with an RFP to respond to, but rather than do that, we got your proposal. So that's why I said in my statement that we didn't get a qualifying proposal to our RFP, because the RFP said nothing about purchase. It said lease, right? Sorry, CEO, you wanted to say something?
Oh, no,
Okay.
I do, but
As for this going back to 2024, the rent only proposal prepared with Al Rain brought to council. I can't really speak to that at this point. I remember an email to that effect. I can't say that I remember actually every piece of that content at the time. The one under the second one in 2025 for purchasing strategy at market value, I don't ever remember seeing any proposal where market value, because We have an appraisal of market value, and I don't remember you offering to pay us anywhere near that dollar amount, so. Third proposal submitted through request for proposals process included a lease with an option to purchase at a fixed price. Are you referring to your proposal you sent at the response to the RFP? Okay. And then on the next one here, we say current request for proposals publicly posted. Three proposals reopen dates. As we stated in our earlier in the statement, when I talked about the requirement for legislative requirements. And I don't have all the dates off the top of my head, but if I remember correctly, in your proposals, the dates that the two of you proposed. In almost every case were unrealistic. There was no way for us to meet our legislative requirements as a local government and achieve those dates, right? So. Dates are kind of moot if there's no physical way to achieve them. We're required under the Local Government Act to do certain things that are time restricted. And if I remember right, and council correct me if I'm wrong, we all sat in a meeting, including yourselves, and agreed that it would take the time it took. And that we would work through that process together to get to a collaborative solution to get the clinic reopened. So when you ask the question, can we commit to a clear timeline? I think I go back to what I just said now. We're committed to getting the clinic reopened and collaborating on that, and it'll take the time that it takes. We have to follow the proper process and meet those legislative requirements. So we're committed to getting it open, but I don't have a crystal ball to say that it can be open on March the 1st or March the 15th or whatever that date might be.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
before we continue, through the mayor to CEO Campbell, is there any of these questions you'd like to flag before we continue?
Do you want me to speak to it?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak on behalf of council, so please jump in.
Yeah,
The first question, I would say no, the timelines continue to shift. And there's some of that's beyond our control, so I don't think it's fair to put a timeline in place if we don't think we can meet those deadlines. And we may not be able to meet those deadlines for reasons beyond our control, because we have tried to provide timelines before, and that hasn't been successful. With respect to the second question around, the clinic reopening and the $10,700, that's a yes, but that requires some context. So in attempt to get the health center reopened as quickly as possible, while we work through a longer term lease with option to purchase, including a partnering agreement, which would be required to provide no rent, which comes with its own timelines and legislative steps. We had agreed to try and put something together that would be similar to a temporary use permit, but essentially a temporary use facility use permit, thank you. A short term, quick, let's get the health center reopened and an operator in the health center. To do that, there was no way that we could provide no rent. That's not legally permissible under the legislation because we don't have a partnering agreement in place. So in our efforts to quickly put something together, our legal counsel simply looked at an appraisal that was completed for the health center and used a square footage on that to put in a rental amount. Should we have looked at that more carefully before we sent it? Yes, of course. Considering that the health center space does have limitations on what it can be used for, the rent should probably have been identified as less than that. However, we did go back, and my understanding, I don't speak on behalf of the mayor, my understanding is the mayor did go back and confirm that absolutely we would revisit that rental amount again in the short term. We would look at potentially charging the rent that we charge Sun Peaks Resort for the ski patrol space.
so for context, if you say market value is say $30 or $35 a square foot, and we totally understand with the benefit of hindsight, the proponent's concern over being given that figure, but in the municipality's defense, we were not in a position, as we said then, to provide it at no rent. So when proponents showed that they were obviously not willing to do that, and we went away and thought about it, we sat down, we looked at the lease agreement that the resort has with us for the ambulance bay and the patrol space, and we matched those numbers, which was still considerable, around $20 a square foot. Councilor Reagan, not putting you on the spot, if I remember correctly, we also had discussed that we would potentially look at some way down the road when the point of option to purchase came, where we might be able to rebate that rent at a later date. I think would have been part of a discussion of the meeting. So we were looking at any kind of creative way we could do that. The idea was that that rent would only be a couple of months until such time as the larger agreement, which had a partnering portion and the $0 lease, took effect. So. Did you
Yeah,
want to
just,
say that?
and for further context, this was only for a short-term arrangement. For clarity, a long-term lease agreement would have zero rent built into it.
I'm not quite sure about the next one. Municipalities' budget statements, both processor terms do not match the actual processor terms. Supporting a public joint clarification to correct the record.
No, we believe they do.
We believe they do, so no. Yes or no, the municipality will commit to publicly releasing all three Dr. Nowinski's proposals and the municipality's written responses, if any, with any legally requiring redactions, so the public record is complete.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware of the two other proposals. I haven't seen them, so my understanding, and I could be wrong, and maybe I'm not forgetting, I don't recall those ever coming to a meeting of council for council's decision.
No,
Council may have-
The first proposal was not a proposal, it was just a letter saying, hey, I'm interested in buying the space. And I believe there was a figure of $1 million in that letter, but there wasn't in that first thing, there was not. The first one that came to council with their main brought was not, then it did not mention lease in there at all, it was a proposal to buy only. And the amount was $1 million. And it was about 3/4 of a page. It was more of a letter. It didn't really have any.
So what about the two? So what about the proposal sent? I'm sorry.
If I may just expand on that, so it was an unsolicited letter that was submitted and council did discuss it. We were engaged in a lease arrangement with another operator at the time, and we were unable
Still the
to
contract.
even entertain it, so.
I believe we did respond to that as well too. Did Mr. Mayor Rain respond to that?
So I would say yes to this, absolutely. I have no problem. It will take some time, but I have no problem looking through our records and former Mayor Rain's email records. And releasing publicly the proposals that were sent, as well as the municipality's written responses. As for clarity, under the privacy legislation, any correspondence with an individual who's acting in a professional capacity is not subject to the privacy legislation, so I've no issue with releasing those emails and the proposals.
So we'll work towards that one. So yes is the answer there. And then finally, at number 5,
Yeah, yes, we can do that for clarity, though. We never keep proposals, like requests for proposals up once the RFP is closed. It just creates confusion for individuals who are looking at our website. Same thing when we post job postings, once that posting is filled, we take it down off of our website, but happy to repost that on the website, but perhaps with a note saying that the RFP is closed and not open.
but for anybody's desire to read the RFP.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Morski, that suffice? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Ben?
And William, at the last public meeting, council meeting, when the health centre was discussed, it was suggested that we sit around the table with proponents to the deal, sit around the table and hash it out, and there seems to be some misunderstanding about what was actually proposed and when it was proposed. So has at any time, all the parties involved sat down on the table and discussed this? Or has it all been done by email, which is open to lengthening the process and misinterpretation?
Absolutely not. It's been in an official in-camera meeting with all of council and the proponents.
No, but once was all of council.
Yeah, and then once first portion.
Once was partially council.
So 2 times.
Jason White, so is it my understanding that the Resort LLP has first right of refusal to both the clinic, or sorry, the patrol space and the ambulance bay?
And
And the clinic as well.
Okay, but that's a separate thing from here, so. And then my second question to that then is there anything from the Resort LLP that says that they have declined or they want to keep that first right of refusal? Are they committing to anything?
they don't want, we have had discussions with them in official capacity to work towards municipality's focus and thanks for your question, Jason, is to protect that clinic and its long-term viability. We've always known Mayor Rain worked very closely with Darcy Alexander, CEO of Sun Peaks Resort, and other members of leadership. The resort, you know, Darcy wanted me to tell everyone that the resort has always been a partner in the process of healthcare in this community from day one, long before there was ever a full service clinic. And that project, that building was not only built to service the healthcare in the community, but also the resort knew it had expanded needs around patrol. And that without that ambulance bay, BC Ambulance will not keep an ambulance here during the winter season. So, they have no desire, he's made it clear to me, not only do they wanna keep on, right now, they rent that space from us, but the preference would be if the municipality was willing to sell them the space, they'd just like to buy it and have control of their own space. So that's something that we've had discussions about, and it's on the table.
Just for added clarity, Mr. Mayor, the resort has said that they will forego the right of first refusal on a clinic. To enable a municipality to pursue an agreement for purchase. But there has to be protection in the long term that it remains viable as a health clinic.
And I think the other thing.
Sorry, one quick, and they've said crystal clear that those portions of the facility that they operate and use can be in no part of any agreement around the sale of the clinic.
So is any of that on record or in writing, or is it all just, in meeting?
Maybe.
No, I would think, yeah, some of it, most of it, if not all of it. Right.
I feel that's pretty important.
Yeah.
I would also say, like, for a timeline period, what's getting missed here too is what will also take longer for anything sales on that, is that first floor has not been stratified yet. So at this point, we can't, there's a process to selling off part of it to one person, part of it other, we can't just go and. There's a process to do it, the resort, Darcy did say he was one who would like to take care of the stratification.
His team is. His legal.
And with that as well too, there are other complications to the ambulance bay for stratifying, because the grant process of how the ambulance bay was built.
So just 1 second, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, may I add to that? I do have written confirmation that Sun Peaks Resort, in their desire to purchase the ski patrol space in the future, would also like to include, wants that to include the ambulance bay and the amenity room, because as council will recall, we had an appraisal completed. And when the appraisal was completed, I did specifically ask Sun Peaks Resort if what we were looking at in the appraisal was the ski patrol, including the ambulance bay and amenity room, which obviously makes sense because they're an extension of the ski patrol. And in their opinion, obviously critical to their operations.
Yeah.
I just also want to flag the complexity with the ambulance bay and an amenity room space. That was an addition that was funded through a grant through the Health Association. The municipality does own that addition. However, it sits on land that is crown land that is leased to Sun Peaks Resort. So there is a whole level of complexity and work that would need to be done regardless of future ownership in order to work through that process.
Okay, thank you. So first Brenda and then John, after that.
Brandon Ellichenko, registered nurse, local in the community. I just had a question about your stratification. Is that of the lower level? Because is there an upper level that's already stratified?
It is, yes.
Correct,
Talking
that's
about
correct.
Stratification of the health clinic and the patrol.
And the upstairs, you're right, is already a separate strata. Okay. Johnny?
Johnny Duray, resident of St. Pete's. So I'm pretty sure everybody here would agree that the best outcome is the opening of the clinic, and everybody wants to work towards that. So what do you see the next steps are to drive this the most efficiently possible, and who is accountable for it ultimately?
Well, that's a big question. Well, I think at the end of the day, I mean, if we're gonna get this done, Johnny, all parties need to come to an agreement, and I will say this, when we started this process, based on the feedback given by the working group, is the one non-negotiable for the municipality was the sale of the space. Understandably, for their reasons, and I understand their perspective, the proponents felt that they wanted to control their own destiny when it came to the operating of their business. As a business owner, I can totally relate to that. In the initial phases, municipality, we sat and debated and discussed and voted on it on a number of occasions, and continued to feel that it was not in the community's best interest to make that space available for sale. as we listened to the concerns like yourself from the community, the residents. And we met with the resort as the co-owner of the stratified building. We came to the conclusion that this was something that we needed to move on, and we did move on that and move in the direction of an option to purchase under the conditions that we needed to put covenants in place to protect the long-term use. If 5 or 10 years from now, the proponent was to sell the business to another party and move on, and then that party did not follow in good faith what they've been doing, we could be in a bad situation. And I think for your children and everybody else's children in this community, we don't want to just see healthcare for the next year or two. So we're very happy to sit down and get this deal done, but protecting the long-term interests of the community is non-negotiable, and we will not move off that.
So that's the covenant.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, the other piece to this is the partnering agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And we have continually said throughout this process that we need to ensure that in the event that the health center ceases to operate, the municipality needs to ensure that it has access to acquire the land back. And that is part and parcel of any type of partnering structure moving forward.
And I think outside of those two things, Jean-Yves, there's an agreement to be done here. Sorry, on the left there, Alice.
Alice Muirhead. I was a member of the working group, and on reflection, following the working group, and in conversations with other people in the community, we realized that we actually didn't have all of the information about the health center and the history of the health center. So one of the things that we didn't know was that the clinic is a community health center, a designation through the provincial government, the Ministry of Health, which enables us to receive certain pieces of funding and potentially staff. So we didn't know that we had actually already received that designation. You'll see in the Health Center Working Group report that we recommend council work toward that designation, but in fact, we already had it. So my question is there still consideration of the community health center model by council?
Councilor Glasgow.
You're absolutely right. That information came in afterwards. It would have been incredibly valuable to know during the process. And for all our diligence, it just wasn't available to us at the time. As Mayor O'Toole stated, we are actively in the process with this proponent. If for some reason that changes, we are open to all avenues, but at this time, we're actively in the process with the phone.
Brenda, you want to ask him, or you respect that?
About that, educate me, like that, are the two mutually exclusive, like the community health center designation? Is it different than, like, is it an either or, is it different than what the proponents are proposing? I'm a little confused on that.
Councilor Glasgow.
So right now, when we are talking to the proponent about their proposal to open the health center, so we are not in the position to tell the proponent to go down that avenue. The proponent would have to explore that. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, and we just further to that, I mean, in the meetings we've had, and discussions we've had with proponents, we've said that our goal is to keep, now that we have this understanding around what the health association represented in this community health center designation, is we would like to keep the community health center, health association active, partly because the health association, as it sits now, this is the health association council with the addition of Alice, and we appointed to that board as well. We own a condominium in the Sundance Lodge, which was purchased by an earlier board to operate, to provide locum service and things like that. And obviously, the health association would still continue to provide that to the proponent if they were operating the clinic. We see value that in a support role, whether that be in community fundraising or outreach or education, that active community-based health association, irregardless of who's operating the clinic, could have a role to play in the community and that large. Yeah. Sorry, CEO.
So I just wanted to provide some more context to the question around the community health center model and designation, because I learned more about this than I thought I would ever need to know. But my understanding is that it is that the health center, the community health center model and designation is specifically, it's started by a nonprofit, so it is under a nonprofit operational model, and the approach is through like a collaborative team approach, interdisciplinary model.
Yeah.
So that's the distinction.
Chris, you can shed some light. Well, and then the others.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
I would just like to shed light on the.
because you, just for clarity, you wrote.
So the Sun Peaks Community Health Association is the governing body for the Sun Peaks Community Health Center. So under the BC Association of Community Health Centers, we pay dues, and it still is on paper the body that can govern health service under a CHC. So that hasn't stopped. And one of the reasons I asked my prior question is I thought, while negotiations are ongoing with this proponent, whether or not we could reenact that so that we get access to resources that have been dedicated to our community health center and operate that way until such time as we were able to secure the family medicine. And
I've got one more on the left, Mario, just 1 second. Three. Do you want
I'll let Mario go.
to go? Okay.
Yeah.
Mario Poza. I would like some clarity, and maybe Chris can do this. It was my understanding, back this up. I didn't think, much like the rest of the committee who was doing the investigation, that we were designated as a community health center.
I did not know that at the time, you're
Yeah,
correct.
I didn't know we had that designation.
No.
Okay. We transferred, as the past president, we were in the process of transferring the remaining funds, for the Sun Peaks Health Association over to the municipality, thinking there's a few dollars left, they can use it to run a clinic, so on and so forth. But it was my understanding, and maybe Chris can clarify, that in order to be a member of the community health centers of BC, you have to have an elected board, and that board cannot be a municipal board. So right now, we're sort of in contravention of their rules and regulations to be a member of the community health centers of BC, because the municipality is running the Sun Peaks Health Association.
Yeah, and that, not intentionally, obviously.
Not
Because we
intentionally,
didn't
because I didn't know
realize
we had the
we're-
designation.
Yeah, we found that out after the fact, and the working group was completed, and in hindsight, I wish I would have included Chris in that working group. Because we would have known that from the get-go, because to your point, when, I don't believe, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, we had heard back on that designation when the board was passing over and dissolving and handing things to us and council became that board.
That's right.
And then the designation came afterwards and kind of got lost in translation, and we didn't really realize that it happened.
no, the designation never got lost.
Okay,
It just, you weren't aware of it.
well, that's what
That's.
we weren't aware.
But technically, right now, we're in contravention.
Yes.
So they're supposed to be.
Based on
a-
that, I understand what's the evidence that we
Becoming a-
disagree.
Conversation.
Yeah, I don't.
There's a membership.
Okay, thank you.
But I just want to clarify,
Yep.
it wasn't the understanding that the council being the board of the health association was temporary with your intention to I mean, I think
Correct.
that's what it said, was the intention was to transfer it. At some point in time. So-
Yeah, CO.
Well, I do have written record that we are, not we, the health center, is designated as a community,
Yeah.
as a community health center. Steps operated under that model, Steps access grant funding under that model. Steps was very aware of and active within that model and utilize that designation. And I believe, this may have come up already, but council does have the intention to have the health association transferred to an independent community-led association. That's always been the intention.
And just for context, so as I mentioned earlier, council as the board of the health association voted to bring Allison to do some background work and preparation. There had been some discussion at that point that we shift immediately to a community-led health association, and to Councilor Gillespie's point from earlier. we agreed as a group that the focal point should be to remain and focus 100% on working with proponents on a solution. And optically, we didn't feel that it would have the best look to the proponents if all of a sudden we were like, oh, we're over here talking to you about taking on the clinic, but oh, by the way, here's plan B, right? We didn't feel that that was necessarily gonna be in the best interest of the community. I think on a personal level, when we were making that call, I know in my heart, I didn't feel we'd be sitting here at the end of February. So I thought we would be back up and operating by now, or I may have made a different decision at that time. Any more questions? Mario?
Mario Boza, just a question for clarification. We're talking about meeting all these requirements with regards to the community or the BC charter, that we can't allow any discount rates for anything like that, and those being sort of mini hurdles, as it were. If there was to be a direct sale of the clinic to the proponent, where would that make those obligations obviously disappear?
You mean like skip a lease and sell it today, is what you're trying to say? I have no idea. That hasn't been on the table. Council has not discussed that.
With the proper caveats that the clinic would remain a clinic, a health clinic, in transference of the proponent.
Just like CEO.
Not if the sale was below market. If the
Yeah.
sale is below market.
Has to be in market at appraised value, and to your point, you talked about, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and further to that, the municipality legally can't dispose of an asset like that unless notice is provided and the process is gone through.
And to your point, you talked about the covenants and all those kinds of things, well, we can't get those done on a lease agreement, so how would that be any different on a purchase agreement?
Why can't you get it done on a lease agreement?
We haven't been able to.
Have you provided all the details?
Who's saying no?
What do you define as details? I'm saying that we've stated that there needs to be covenants protecting the long-term interests of the municipality. We need to craft that agreement and those covenants.
And has that been provided to the
And
proponents?
just a second, right? We can't even get that far, sir. Okay, CEO?
I'm happy to comment. So an agreement was provided, obviously covenants are technical in nature and those schedules are still being worked on. The content, including the general terms and conditions of what would be in the covenants, were included in the draft agreement. From my perspective and from council's perspective, that's sufficient for the proponents to have an understanding of what the expectation would be in those covenants.
I would agree, Chris. Just 1 second. Chris? Sorry, go ahead, CEO.
If I may, the fact that their council is asking that there be an option to purchase if the proponents fail to continue to use and operate the facility. Regardless of, the finer details that would go into that, I mean, it's not a surprise that council has specifically said and built into the agreement that they would like an option to purchase the facility back if the proponents are in default and no longer use and operate the facility, or if the facility in the future is not used for a health center.
Chris, sorry, 1 second. Yes, Chris is up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chris Rogers. 2 questions, if I may. We're referring to market value appraisal. And I would think it would be challenging to get an appraisal on a building that is restricted for use.
Correct.
And so were you able to get that kind of talent locally, or was it an appraisal that was reflecting just average market value?
CEO. Oh, small that.
It was an appraiser that we use out of Kamloops that
Average commercial market value then.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Best
but
use
just-
commercial.
But just, yes, just
And yet this building isn't able to be used for
Correct.
business.
That is correct.
So we don't have an appraisal, is that correct?
we don't have an appraisal that reflects the limited.
Specific
use.
single use in the facility. That is correct.
But
Just a second.
just for clarification, Mr. Mayor, the framework of the collaboration where we sat down with the proponents was that as we take those next step forward, we will both independently seek an appraisal that recognized limited market value.
Thank you,
And
Counselor.
so
And so
an
I
expert,
just raised the question
Yeah.
because this appraisal has been referenced multiple times, and yet I had heard exactly what you say, that there isn't a valid appraisal at this point, so I think we can probably move past that. The
Second
second
question.
point of reference, second question. There's a whole nother discussion around community health center that clearly has different opinions. We have a letter of intent that the municipality issued in 2019 that I have a copy of, and Deanna, I'm happy to provide it to you. It's one of those things that people with the best of intentions, working hard, do the best they can at the time. The letter of intent recognizes that the health center is going to apply for membership in this unstructured thing that the province had just started rolling out as part of their MOH long-term strategy. And that the municipality would act quickly to form a community elected board, which is a requirement of a community health center. I worry that we get distracted by the appeal of a community health center with the idea of grant money and, you know, nonprofit and, you know, give some local employment to administration staff. That doesn't necessarily deliver us healthcare. I'm not sure our government in the spot of the recent budget has a lot of grant money to spare. My question. We're hearing a lot about regulation, legislative requirements, a lot of process, a lot of procedure. And I can understand that nobody wants to risk being offside with the rules. We're still a community of 1,600 people that have a willing doctor and a willing community. When we talk about partnership agreements and we talk about not being able to come to terms on that, in my simple mind, I think it could be something as simple as this will be operated as a medical clinic. But I don't think that the community necessarily has the expertise or the knowledge to be able to add stipulation on top of that. What kind of hours, what kind of staff, when is default? It's simple. You want a medical clinic, it can be covenanted that way. I would ask all parties to step back from these discussions of who said what, when, what is right or wrong, but move us a little step back from the bureaucracy and come back to what our objective is. Within that objective, if we could simply have agreements that say, yes, this must be used for this purpose. Not like any doctor that would come to run it would try and do it badly. We're not experts in this space. Can we get back to the basics? And remove some of these stipulations that are making it so hard to come to agreement. I don't think it benefits the community to try and paper certainty years out into the future beyond it will always be the health center. And that should be good enough for us. My question is, when you say all options are open, is an option stepping back from the very understandable bureaucratic process that we're in right now and finding a more simple way to pay for this deal?
Danny, and then Johnny about that.
Did you have?
I don't think I got
I
it.
need to take, can I just take a second?
Yeah.
Yeah, give me a second, please.
How did the municipality become owners of the health centre? Because I and the other people in this room donated funds for us to get the health centre. When did that? And I think we donated into the Community Health Association.
Correct. Can you give me 1 second? We're gonna come back to you, Danny, on that question. Do you wanna chime in on the previous one?
Well, I was simply asking if we were going to, simply asking if we were going to respond to that.
Well-
It was a great question. I think, it was slightly misleading on where, we are in the process and what the municipality is trying to, stipulate. the long-term, protecting the community asset and making sure that it's always, a medical center. And getting it reopened is absolutely what we're trying to do. The mechanisms to safeguard it for the future, are something that we are actively working towards, and those would be the stipulations that we're focused on, not much outside of that.
And I'll also add to that. We don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now, 10 years from now. The promoter could have it, they could sell it to someone else, can be sold to someone else. And if there's not clear cut definitions and terms, even a medical center or medical services, many things in the hands of a lawyer can be taken, be very vague and be twisted around and mean many different things. And we could be sitting here meaning to do something in good faith now, and 1 year, 2 years, 10 years down the road, doing something in good faith gets twisted and used against us for someone else's real estate financial gains in the future.
Well, we're not implying that, but we're at all,
Nobody,
you know.
nobody papers deals that predict the future, Kelly, and can prevent every incident from happening.
I don't
We
think,
can overcomplicate it.
I don't, in my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, but based on what we've had staff and legal counsel do, I don't think we're papering this deal to death at all. Right? I believe it's pretty straight up.
You could find another doctor that would sign your proposal.
Right, I think. It's, yeah, that's not the point, sorry, I think we're talking about a $0 lease, $0 for equipment. Unfettered free access to a condominium for use with local doctors, right? I don't understand, and then an option to purchase. With working through appraisals provided by the two parties to come to an agreement on the value of that facility to be purchased at a later date. As long as there's covenants in there protecting the long-term use of that facility. And as to Councilor Ryken's point, that if for any reason the proponent decides it's not working, they want to close the doors, that we have the ability to enact to purchase it back so it doesn't sit empty for 6 months or a year or 2 years while they're waiting to sell it, right? That to me, as a non-legal person, is pretty simple, right? That's not a complicated process. So Matthias and then Jason.
Hi, my name is Matthias Rubio, and I wanted to ask a specific question here, because I hear a lot of different terms being brought up. Are these terms going to be put in the final, complete draft agreement for the proponent to review? I mean, not just the terms that you have just stated, but the terms that were stated by different municipality officials, whether in past council meetings or to the media or in other public communications that have come out to the public record. It feels that it's important that we reflect every single term that we throw on the wind, basically, so that the proponent has an opportunity to review them and decide whether the proponent agrees with them or not. It is important for the record that what we say that we're doing, we're actually doing it within the process. So again, my question is, in case it wasn't clear enough, all these different statements that you have made and all these conditions that you say that you have offered, are you going to put them in the agreement for the proponent to review?
They're in the agreement, if I may.
Yeah, CEO, go ahead.
No, and I don't want to speak on behalf of council, but from my perspective, they are in agreement with the exception of the detailed schedules, which would be the covenants. However, the content of those schedules was addressed in the body of the agreement. Completely understand and recognize that it's important to have the details. And council has just received those schedules and we will be reviewing them prior to us being able to forward them on. But from my perspective, the terms that council has expressed in this meeting are included in the draft agreement.
Yeah, so follow up from you, Matthias, and then Jason, and then Brenda.
Okay, just following that, does that mean that every term that was disclosed to the public will be offered actually for the proponent to review? And another question to what you just mentioned. I don't quite understand what it means that some parts were given, some parts were not given.
So a draft agreement was provided without the schedules, which would be the covenants, and in the draft agreement that was provided, the content and the general terms and conditions of what those covenants would contain was included in comments in the draft agreement. Fully recognize that the actual schedules and draft covenants themselves are not included, but the comments addressing the content of them were.
Further follow-up. Yes.
I still don't understand. Was the entire agreement provided or was the entire agreement not provided?
No, we just explained that. So there was an agreed draft agreement provided without schedules, which is the covenants that we speak about. As our legal counsel was still drafting the covenants. It's my understanding, if I remember right, I don't have it in front of me here, that was stated in the email with the draft agreement, that the schedules would come at a later date. And that we were requesting review of that draft agreement along with comments and any suggested amendments by yourself and Dr. Nowinski, the proponent, back to us, and that we would then provide those schedules to you at a later date. Okay. So, as your final follow, we'll come back around. You want to get this more close after that.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Now, you just said that you have sent something for review. You just had said that you have sent something that's incomplete for review. Are you able to review something that's incomplete?
I can't say that I don't have a problem with it, but that's up to you.
So,
Councilor Gillespie.
perhaps an explanation of why it was done in that timeline. And given out an incomplete document, for review is necessary. The schedules do take some time to complete. And in the good faith measure of moving this along, the draft agreement, was issued for comment and constructive, feedback. So that if anything was flagged, the schedules and the agreement could represent that. So to simply say you can't comment on a incomplete document, it was put out there in good faith so that we could move along at an expedited process.
Jason, just one second. Jason, you're up next.
Chris really hit something home that for me, and I first of all, thank you guys for having to deal with this. I'm kind of glad I didn't put my submission in, run for council now.
I feel you.
My companies deal with 4 or 5 different government agencies, including Interior Health. We installed new water lines, and Clint can attest to this. Sometimes getting approval for a water line to be installed from Interior Health is 6 to 7 months. You guys are dealing with an above group that is setting timelines. It's not something that you can just push them. We push the government more, and they push back. We have a foreign buyers ban that they won't even talk to us on. So my point is, that you can't change that. That's just going to be what it is. Process is process with bureaucracy. So I feel bad that you guys can't get these things done because sometimes your hands are tied, and you have a fiduciary duty to act on behalf of the people. What Chris said that really made me think is this community is famous for coming together and getting stuff done. That's how we built our schools. That's how we built this clinic. That's how we built this building. That's how we've done a lot of things, and we're really good at that. So for lack of a better term, I feel we're at loggerheads here. And I think that if everybody's willing to sit down around that table and not forget the past, but let's look forward more. Let's try and be in a forward motion and use the intelligence of the people that we have. There's a lot of intelligent people in this room, and kind of just have a reset. You know, it's like fighting with your spouse. You gotta go downstairs and throw something. I mean, go downstairs and come back upstairs a couple hours later. So I think if we can kind of maybe just take a step back. I talked to Nancy about this today. Our pride in this community is coming together. So let's try and work with this. We know we need a doctor. We love this lady here. And if that's, sorry, I didn't have a question there, but I just felt that was needs to be said.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Naomi Krasinski, my question's about the temporary use permit with food trucks. Been very good to us a lot. So in talking with the food vendors who are coming, even though, you know, their gross margins, when you look at it, are about $2,500 to $5,000 for the weekend, with accommodation, staffing, fuel, coming into a new space. And I kind of brought it up at the last council meeting as well. I just said, you know, in year one of us trying this out and welcoming them into this community, could we look to offer that business fee license at $150? I just don't want this business fee license of $300 with no track record to offer these food vendors to stop us from getting these people into our community. So I asked council, is it possible to look at $150 license for these 5 food trucks coming this year, with the understanding that as we go forward, you know, either they could apply within the 50% discount, but just to ensure that I don't want us to go to all this effort and then the food vendors don't actually come.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, there's always the possibility that Tourism Sun Peaks then looks at rebating them back that $150 if they're concerned about, and it can come out of the event budget.
CEO.
It was very, we don't have a mechanism to give discounts on business license fees. So if council wanted to entertain a separate category for that, then we need to go through a whole bylaw amendment, which if council directs staff to do that. Mr. Hopper, I don't know if you, it's up to council.
Yeah, could be possible. I think a good thing to keep in mind is we do the 50% discount after July 1st for any businesses applying for a business license. Obviously, we've got Altitudes on in April, so that would miss that.
They would miss that.
But anything after that gets that 50% discount. So whatever we do, we'd want to make sure that we're not maybe double discounting.
So Naomi, are you talking specifically probably who the vendors will be for Altitudes? Is that what you're probably referring to?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I mean, the one thing is like, we don't have a way to say, hey, you can come back for future events, you know, so for them, it might be like, this is a one-time.
One shot deal.
You know, and of course, I have looked at the bylaws and see that there's not a category for that. And there, you know, I've talked to Dimitri on this, there's that other business license category. So I don't know if it could be parented in, you know, into that section or not. I just have talked to the food vendors, they said it would be the 300 in comparison to other places. So I'm asking us to look at that and see if it's possible. For
It
this.
sounds like from our standpoint, it would require another business licensing category, which would require a report and presentation to council, am I correct? Yeah,
I'm just, if this is, I'm just mindful.
yeah. Is that something that councilors feel they would want to take a look at, or is there an appetite for that?
I'd be happy to take a look at it. Yeah, I think it's, being successful in this first year with new vendors is really important. Yeah, I think it's something that we can absolutely be, flexible on if the rest of council agrees.
Yeah. Councilor Kimball, Reagan?
I would be willing
Be all right with
to
that?
look at it for sure.
Councilor Reagan?
I'm certainly supportive of it, just curious whether or not we could amend the terms of the TUP at this particular point to simply implement that for the first year of the 3-year term.
Good question. 1 second.
The TUP would change the business license though.
It requires the business license, so we could stipulate that it's a 50% reduction. for
Can
the
we do
first-
that?
Well, I'm asking that.
Just ask, we're asking that question. That's something we need to go away and think on and not give an answer, or?
Yeah, I believe I need to go away and think on that, because I don't think a council resolution stipulating the 50% discount will override council's bylaw, which essentially says that's the cost.
Okay, so you need a motion from us to direct staff to go away and look at that? Okay. Can I get a motion to have staff take a look at amending the temporary use permit for 50%?
Business license bylaw.
Bylaw.
Business license bylaw. we need to
Yeah,
amend it.
business license
Just
bylaw.
for just-
Moved by Councilor Wright, second by Councilor Kimball. Any further discussion? Don't see none, all in favor. Sorry, I think I had to get a couple more hands up. So one on the left there, and then one gentleman right there.
I'm that guy who asked a really, really nasty question right at the end of the meeting.
And just for, I know who you are, but just so everybody knows who you are.
I'm Steve Fash. I was the chairman of the working group that has been referenced a few times here. And I guess because of that, a lot of people have been approaching me and saying, what's going on? What is the problem? Why is the health center so closed? And Mr. Mayor, is there one single issue, which is the sticking point? Initially, you referenced the fact that, and we have recommended that we didn't want to sell it. Something that was our advice. And so you've moved on that.
Correct.
Is it the price is wrong? Or are we negotiating?
Well, I don't think there's anything, I can't say there's one single issue, I think overall, I mean, Jason said, I think at the end of the day, we need to get back to a place where we're working in good faith and a collaborative effort for an outcome. I appreciate Chris Rogers' comments earlier about the immediate, but, I didn't take this chair to do work for a year. Sorry. So I'm not just looking at this clinic solution for 6 or 12 months. Or 5 years. Many people around this table, people in this room are raising kids here, have raised kids here, both my children are adults. And they live here. And I won't leave. Excuse me.
I think everybody in this room wants the same thing. We all want the health center, and I appreciate that every single person here has worked in good faith and hard. A lot of people have put in a lot of work, not just this present council, but going back 20 years that I've been here. And I understand that feelings run strong, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate your emotions. I salute you for that. You're a family man and a businessman, and you're dedicated to it. But everybody feels the same. And so again, people say that. What is it? What is the thing that's holding us back here? What are we sticking at? And if it's just one simple thing, or is it just a myriad of details and we're bogged down in so many details? And hence this issue about the legalities. Oh, the legalities. I'll tell you, I'm sorry, a lawyer just take a lot. Yeah, very important. Is it something that we're so stuck on that we need arbitration? We need for arbitration? Is there a path forward that we can see, or are we just kind of lost? Yeah. Could we arbitrate?
I don't think that's, I can't speak for the rest of council, I don't think that's something that's on the docket at this moment. I think your point is, I think fundamentally, we need to get back to a place where this is about health and well-being in this community, and that we're having a conversation about health center, the center, and healthcare, and that's what it needs to be about. Full stop.
Could I just offer, this isn't a question, and please bear with me. Years and years ago, I was involved in a situation where I'm a doctor, the medical group I was working with, we had installed a brand new machine at Vancouver General Hospital. But there was a huge press release, and that was going to open on a certain date. We could not negotiate a suitable agreement with the government about how the radiologists were going to be paid. The deadline was approaching, emotions were high, people were lined up. And what were we gonna do? And we were at loggerheads, and what the radiology group decided to do was to not concede their point, but rather they would operate this machine on an acute basis, any pediatric case, for example, we would stand, and there would be no fee charged. Now, I'm not for a moment suggesting Kevin that you work for free, but maybe there's a possibility of running the clinic in a sort of a walk-in clinic, kind of a compromised way while negotiations are going on, not to take the pressure off mayor and council, but to sort of move us past this point of loggerheads that we're at, just to sort of start the wheels rolling again.
Valuable point, thank you. And then gentleman up front here, second behind Mario.
This is my 6th winter at Sun Peaks, and it's a fascinating community to me. I do a lot of work with Parks Canada. And I operate out of Tobermory, Ontario, which is the dive capital of North America. And they have, under the direction of Dr. George Hart, created a health clinic that is now staffed by 4 or maybe 5 full-time positions. I think there must be a model out there somewhere. I realize that's Ontario, this is British Columbia, different jurisdictions, different rules, all that. Now, one thing that has sort of tweaked me, and it tags onto the doctor's last comment, is it appropriate at this point? We've got two groups of people that are kind of working through the details, to bring in, I'm not gonna call it an arbitrator, but a mediator. And somebody that can assess what the landscape is, know what the absolutes are. And then find some middle path that serves your family and your community, people like me that visit. My buddy Glenn, who fell in the parking lot in his condo and had to go downtown to get his elbow taken care of, you know, you're the second largest ski resort in Canada. People come here from all over. And I think there's an underlying assumption that, Jesus, if something happens to me, I can get some help. Correct. And I think that, just listening to the conversation, it might be somebody that needs to come in and map out all those absolutes and find a common ground. And maybe that person lives in this community, I don't know, but thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Sorry, Councillor Gillespie, and then Matthias, you can.
Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Ed? Yeah.
Brian, nice to meet
Hey,
you.
Brian.
Tobin Ward?
Yeah,
I think, one of your doctors is Dr. Bodkin.
probably, yeah.
She's close friends, so if you see her, tell her.
Yeah, thanks very
Who
much.
I've spoken to about this landscape as well, yeah.
Okay, Matthias, and then David in the back.
Along the lines of what Dr. Posh was saying, and what Jason was saying before as well, in terms of reset and finding a way forward in that regard. We don't have a timeline in terms of procurement, the information gathering that you need to go, speak with your legal counsel and all those things. The reason why we wanted to bring up that interim agreement and like hell was because we all thought that this was going to go a lot faster than it's going. So I would like to humbly suggest that we work into an interim agreement if everything else is going to keep taking so long. We get the clinic open. Because the intention of the reason why we propose to do an interim agreement as soon as October, and I do recognize and I understand the legalities and all these things behind it. But at the same time, I want you to remind you, we have been here for 2 years. Catherine has been working for a very long time. She worked under the previous operator, and she did that without a contract. So it doesn't speak any better in terms of goodwill and wanting to work to be under such uncertain conditions as she was, where she had no contract signed with the previous operator. So I don't know how else to communicate goodwill in that regard and the intention to work and the fact that you have people in the room who have been waiting for months now. And they keep asking us all the time, what's happening? And they keep asking the municipality, what's going on? Now we have Dr. Fudge asking you, why can't you just get along? Why can't you just work together? Why can't you just get the clinic reopened? And in that regard, sorry if we were too optimistic in terms of making sure that the clinic didn't even close back in October. We have nothing other but the intention to get the clinic reopened as quickly as possible in a way that in the future, when you're not council anymore, when you're not mayor anymore, the next people who come over, they can read it and say, okay, it's reasonable. And at the same time, allow the doctors to be doctors. Don't try to tell the doctor what to do. Don't try to tell the lawyer what to do in that regard and whatnot. So let the specialists be specialists. Allow them to do their work and let's carry on. In this case, we're getting hung up on process for no reason. And I understand that you have the legal requirements and all those things. But there are ways to comply with the legal requirements and at the same time to get the clinic reopened really quickly. One example of this is this partnering agreement situation. The hiccup that we had with the interim agreement was that you were asking for over $10,000 a month with no timeline inside. So that would have taken years in order to finalize. Here we are 6 months later, and it's been 6 months, for example. None of us expected that to happen. But if we did something as simple as a partnering agreement that I brought to the table a long time ago, can we make as an announcement that only takes 7 days? The clinic would be open in 7 days if we sat down and we put it at an interim agreement. And we both did that.
Okay,
Yeah.
enough. Okay, you've had your time, and with all due respect.
Thank you.
I've said this before today, and I'll say it again. right? The agreement needed to be written by us. The agreement that you provided us is not something we could work with. You could write 100 agreements. But at the end of the day, it's our land or our facility. We lead the process. We've told you that in multiple occasions, face-to-face meetings. If you want to stand here and put us on the spot, I would be careful doing that because my patience is running thin. Right? Because it goes both ways. Stephen Faster, you asked why we can't get this thing done. We're talking about a zero rent, we're talking about zero for equipment, we're talking about an option to purchase, which was the one non-negotiable the municipality originally said they would move off of. To Chris's point, we find a way to get appraisals done that recognize the fact that the property is being used for single use. But that we also needed to register a series of covenants, in my opinion, not complicated, and I'm not a legal person, in order to protect the long-term use of the facility. That seems pretty simple to me, but we can't get that done. That is where the municipality sits today and what we've been offering to do. I'm not sure what else you think we can do, short of giving you a signing bonus to take over the thing. Next question.
I'll speak to that just for a second. So. Appreciate the comments. Protecting the clinic as a clinic space, is, obviously one of the largest hurdles we're facing here. So. In that light. I asked back to you, Matthias, and Dr. Catherine, would you be willing to revisit a lease without the option to purchase and a partnering agreement to get the health clinic back up and running?
Two things. One, given the attitude that the mayor just brought forward, I want to insist on how important it is to have control over our destinies, because if it can swing in a moment like it just did, I don't want that to happen with future mayors or future councillors in that regard. We require stability. We're talking about a doctor who is a specialist. And we're talking about whether it's in the best interest in the community to have just a lease agreement, or if you want the clinic to grow, and if you want investments to be made, by in this case, whoever it is who is running the clinic. Do you want growth or do you want stagnation? Do you want, as the mayor had said earlier, before this recent comment, someone who can decide their future and who can do their best effort in terms of providing healthcare? Or do you want to have someone who has been here for 2 years with no contract and with complete uncertainty about the future, because we don't even have a timeline as of yet? And and although I recognize that it is the municipality's duty to write, or at least their responsibility, but there is an agreement reached, trying to tell people who are making an effort to get the clinic running, that it is wrong for them to write a draft and then say that you're not even going to read it, or what the mayor just stated, is not maybe the best way to go forward.
Thank you for your response. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Also, SB, thank you. So just to follow up, Matthias, so what I'm disappointed in here, and my apologies for losing my cool, is that I feel like we're, and as I said earlier, we're not focused on a healthcare solution here. I did see some posts on social media and one resident made a comment that they felt this was turning into a bit of a real estate deal. And that seems how it feels to me, that we're not focused on a healthcare solution. Municipality would like nothing more, and I've said this directly to Dr. Nowinski, I've said it to you both, to see Dr. Nowinski and the rest of the team back in work in the clinic practicing. But for whatever reason, we're not making any headway. And we've come to a loggerhead, and we just don't seem to be able to make progress. And it's frustrating for you, it's frustrating for us, right? Many people in this room don't have a doctor today, my family included, because Dr. Nowinski was our doctor. CEO, did you have something you wanted to add, or?
So, I don't want to misspeak, Mr. Mayor.
Just a second, then after you have got John, even I've got Brenda, who's in the back.
I don't want to misspeak and I don't want to speak on behalf of the council, but I'm just mindful of the appropriateness of engaging in debate with the proponents on potential terms or conditions, of the agreement or what a future agreement may look like.
I apologize. One kidding, thank you. And my apologies to everybody for losing my cool. Johnny and then Brenda.
Is there anything at this stage in the presented documentation that shows a threat to the future of the clinic? Is there anything that says that the proponents will, if they move on, not provide the sufficient support to find a relevant partner to work with?
There is some concerns in the proponent's proposal that has refused to name the municipality having first right of refusal to buy it back.
I think to your question, to your point, Johnny, and that's a good question, thank you for your question. Is as I commented earlier, like the landscape can change, right? So even if you and I enter into a business relationship and we have a level of trust with one another, and so we don't have a lot of legalese and we don't have a lot of protections. And then I move on and I pass my piece of that business on to a new partner who's bound by the same agreement, but doesn't have the same relationship, the same integrity, I've now put you at risk. Right, and that's what the municipality wrestles with, is we need to be looking at the long term, irregardless whether it's Matthias and Catherine as those proponents, or whether that's 3, 4, 5 owners down the road, 20, 30 years, whatever that is, that we're ensuring the longevity of the community. As Jason said earlier, this is a community of doers and can do and get things done. And we're very passionate about this community, and it's not only in its present form, but in its future as well too.
I understand that, and I think it's very laudable. But are we not trying to chase an impossible target here?
Yeah.
Right?
I don't
You
believe
know,
so.
I'm an executive for a very large company.
Yeah.
And you can never predict the future. I can't even know the stock price for tomorrow. It could crash. You know, so I think at this point, I understand what you're trying to do. You have a proponent who is a willing partner. You can try to predict the future. And if you do, tell me, because I want those lottery numbers.
Yeah.
But I think at this point, trying to figure out what's gonna happen 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, we don't even know if we're gonna have snow 5 years.
Your point's well taken. Brenda, you're sort of, before you chime in, Brenda, 1 second, Councilor, can you comment? And then after Brenda, I've got David after Brenda.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I think that you said it at the outset, and I think all of the parties have said similar things. We sat down in a collaboration to try and move forward under certain parameters, and we're doing that. Is it moving fast enough? No, it's not, but we are at the point where we said we would deliver a draft agreement. We said our lawyers would work on the covenant and the option to purchase it back. They have done that. Council needs to see that. That's not a public process. That needs to be done in camera, and council intends to consider those as part and parcel of their dialogue in camera. Once they've done that, council will determine what it is those next steps are in terms of moving forward. There's a lot of chatter here around, proposals being tabled, and quite frankly, the proposal that was tabled in its last form completely undid what we sat down at the table with the proponents on in terms of the collaboration. So they were putting terms in that proposal that were not what we agreed to when we left the collaboration meeting. So this is a frustrating process. It's complex from a legal perspective. And we're continuing to work through that process and do our due diligence to try and get this to come together.
Brenda, sorry, Brendan and David.
Sorry, if I can answer that, yes, we are making progress.
Thank you. Brenda.
Yeah, I think I was just gonna re-ask that question. What are we doing? Are we making process, and do we need a mediator? I don't know. With all due respect from both parties here, I don't know. And you can't tell me what's the loggerheads, what's the holdup? With all due respect to process, and process is mediation an option at this point?
Councilor Wright.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, the mediation issue has come up a couple times. There is no legally binding agreement between us and the proponents. So there is nothing to mediate. We're having a collaborative dialogue about moving forward and trying to get an arrangement done that meets the foundational pieces of us aiding a private business. That in and of itself is the biggest kicker to what our obligations are as counselors to protect the public interest, to put into the framework of this deal, and that's what we're attempting to do.
Thank you.
David?
Dave Bruder, you hear that? I guess I'm glad I lost my stuff in votes. I'm trying to, I want to put this in the right context. I've been struggling with how to actually say this. I've done much larger software deals with big banks around globally than this deal is going to be worth. But the one thing we do, and we're doing that, is we make proposals as a software vendor to the client. And it might not be what the client wanted. So with all due respect, don't be pissed about that. That's normal business. Second thing, sorry, Mateus, you can shake your head, but
I'm not firm.
no, I know, but you're not going to confirm the next one. I would be dealing with my business counterpart at the client site, so Catherine and whoever at the municipality, and work out a business deal before I'd invite a lawyer even into the conversation.
Yes, you're here.
Okay? So that if you have the business deal structure in place and in agreement between the business parties, the lawyers can argue for months, and usually do. And it's the business people that kind of got to tie them together and make sure it all gets done. So what I have missed in this whole discussion, is there a business deal that has been agreed to yet? Which has absolutely nothing to do with regulation. Nothing. And I think if you went back and just agreed together as parties, what's the principal business deal you both agree with? Then you can, in a timely fashion, get through the regulatory hurdles. That will take time. But from my perspective, and I assume from everybody else who's in here's perspective, if we all understood the business deal was, not what the details are, but the business deal was agreed to. And it was gonna take X number of weeks or months to get through the regulatory stuff, we'd all say, great, keep going. But I don't think coming out of this that I understand what that business deal is, so this is gonna keep going on for months. And that's where I think the community would prefer not to be.
Absolutely, we would all prefer not to be there.
I know it's not really a question, it's a suggestion, but that's why it's.
Councilor Dyer.
All I can say is when we go into in camera, we've already said we're going to start releasing. We're going to sit down, we're going to get a very, I'm sure, thorough explanation on what we can release and what we can't release. And we're going to release it because we did sit down December 22nd and thought we were 95% of the way done on December 22nd. And since then,
Before that.
November.
November, sorry. Yeah, sorry, yeah, November, whatever the date was in November. And
So that's the Councilor Dye's point, is your framework concept, what you're saying, David?
we thought we were there.
That rough, and Matthias and Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we met in November and we had that collaborative meeting, all of council and proponents, we felt we had that verbal rough agreement in place that we were gonna go away and have the lawyers begin to draft, but obviously there was gonna be legal terminology enter into that, the schedules would come later, etc. But we thought we had that rough framework created. When Councilor Wright wants to comment.
Mr. Mayor, just to that point, I mean, that in-camera meeting was, was duly recorded. There are minutes to that in-camera meeting, which outlines, in essence, the framework that you're talking about.
But that's your in-camera meeting, was it in agreement with the proponent?
They were in the meeting.
They were present.
So they were invited to the meeting. We sat down in a collaborative way to scope out the framework of how we were gonna tackle this thing. And as the mayor said, I think we've met that expectation. We delivered an initial draft agreement. The schedules are still to come, but if they follow the framework of what we agreed to in that room. That's certainly my opinion.
And that framework is what you've been talking about.
Correct, sir. And to Matthias's point, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matthias, but we did not include the schedules. Councilor Gillespie, Councilor Dye said part of that was a time thing because, and we know it doesn't like, seems ridiculous for me to be talking about we're trying to fast track things and here we are 6 months down the road. But when we set that agreement, which was sent on December 22nd, without schedules, and the CEO can remind me, but we said that with the desire to say, we've not included the schedules, those are being drafted by the lawyer. We ask you to review this. Does it meet what you believe that we discussed in the meeting? And do you have comment? Do you have any suggested amendments? And then we can bring it back and then attach with those any changes and with the schedules, because obviously as we go through these legalese and partner agreement parts, we were still aware of the fact that we were trying to shrink this process down in any way we possibly could to get that clinic back open as quickly as possible. So I believe, yes, in our opinion, we had that rough business draft. Dan.
So according to Council Health Costs, we have, to use the correct English, schedules in place. And what is then, if you have all the information, you have council prepared an agreement, is that correct?
Correct.
Because you said that was your prerogative, that's what you wanted, you have the schedules. So what is the date now to sit down in camera and hash this out?
But we're having meetings after this in camera. There's a number of things on that agenda. I don't have to share all those details with you at this point. We're still working on those things. Mario?
Mario Poza, you had an agreement, note the schedule as of December 22nd. It is now 2 months from that. Are those schedules available to the proponents?
Not as of this moment, no.
Why is it taking 2 months to get what was supposed to be a simple process with legalese produced?
Can't answer that this moment.
I think that's probably something
Mayor,
that needs to be open.
I think we need to be mindful of reasonable timelines. They're technical, well, respectfully, the proponents did not respond to some of our communication. So I just would like to point out that it does take time when our lawyers are preparing technical covenants. And they're doing that over a holiday period. So December was the holidays, January into the holidays. Staff obviously need to take vacation. Our lawyers are taking vacation. Council's not meeting in camera meeting. Council does need to look at the schedules before they're shared with the proponents to ensure that the schedules reflect what council has directed our legal counsel to do.
I could understand why the proponents would be frustrated.
Thank you, Mario. Matthias?
Just to say exactly what Mario said, we are indeed frustrated, and we're still waiting for something that you said you would put in writing so that we can review it. We don't need to reach an agreement. We're not going to force you to reach an agreement, but we want to at least see the full agreement, so if you don't change a comma or a dot, or it comes up to be $10,000 when you had said $0, and we go into a surprise. We just want to see it.
Thank you for that. So I just want to go around one last time, if anybody has any questions. Chris?
I think it was asked earlier, what's the next step? And I think what we've heard, and I'm asking for you to confirm or correct for me, what we've heard is you've got an in-camera right after this one to look at those schedules. Presumably, the next step would be to deem them good or not and provide them to the proponent. They get to comment. So there is a next step, right?
There'll be steps taken.
We're
yes,
closer
after this
than-
meeting. Councillor's right at the point, I do believe that we're making progress, however slow it might have been.
Sounds like it could be fast now. You've got the stuff. It's good. So my only ask is when you look at it, to see if you can just keep in the back of your mind that it's really not about legislation or the process or what a lawyer tells you. Remember that they are support staff. They're not decision makers. It's really about a community that's looking for a doctor and a doctor that would like to provide the services to the community. But the next steps look plain and it seems you're on it and that could be fast.
Any further questions? CEO Campbell.
Mayor, I just think it needs to be very clear that council are the decision makers in this. Staff do not have the delegated authority, our lawyers do not have the authority, so everything that has been built into this agreement, all the terms and conditions, those have been directed by council. I just want to make sure that that is clear. Our lawyer is not directing the terms and conditions. I am directing our lawyer, in turn, I am taking direction from council, so I just want to make sure that that's clear, that council are the ultimate decision makers in this.
Thank you. Any further questions? No, seeing none. I'm gonna ask for a motion to close this meeting under the community charter, section 91I. Legal advice and 91D, the security of the property of the municipality. Can I get a motion to that? Please. Councillor Kimmel, second by Councillor Lefty, all in favor? Motion is carried.